I lost my spleen, my kidneys, the hearing in my left ear, and both of my legs below the knee. If your life were a book and you were the author, how would you want your story to go? That's the question that changed my life forever. Growing up in the hot Las Vegas desert, all I wanted was to be free. I would daydream about traveling the world, living in a place where it snowed, and I would picture all of the stories that I would go on to tell. At the age of 19, the day after I graduated high school, I moved to a place where it snowed, and I became a massage therapist. With this job, all I needed were my hands and my massage table by my side, and I could go anywhere. For the first time in my life, I felt free, independent, and completely in control of my life. That is, until my life took a detour. I went home from work early one day with what I thought was the flu, and less than 24 hours later, I was in the hospital on life support with less than a 2% chance of living. It wasn't until days later, as I lay in a coma, that the doctors diagnosed me with bacterial meningitis, a vaccine-preventable blood infection. Over the course of 2.5 months, I lost my spleen, my kidneys, the hearing in my left ear, and both of my legs below the knee. When my parents wheeled me out of the hospital, I felt like I had been pieced back together like a patchwork doll. I thought the worst was over until weeks later when I saw my new legs for the first time. The calves were bulky blocks of metal with pipes bolted together for the ankles, and a yellow rubber foot with the raised rubber line from the toe to the ankle to look like a vein. I didn't know what to expect, but I wasn't expecting that. With my mom by my side and tears streaming down our faces, I strapped on these chunky legs and I stood up. They were so painful and so confining that all I could think was, how am I ever going to travel the world in these things? How was I ever going to live the life full of adventure and stories as I always wanted? And how was I going to snowboard again? That day, I went home, I crawled into bed, and this is what my life looked like for the next few months. Me passed out, escaping from reality, with my legs resting by my side. I was absolutely, physically, and emotionally broken. But I knew that in order to move forward, I had to let go of the old Amy and learn to embrace the new Amy. And that is when it dawned on me that I didn't have to be 5'5" anymore. I could be as tall as I wanted. Or as short as I wanted, depending on who I was dating. And if I snowboarded again, my feet aren't going to get cold. And best of all, I thought, I can make my feet the size of all the shoes that are on the sales rack. And I did. So there were benefits here. It was this moment that I asked myself that life-defining question. If my life were a book and I were the author, how would I want this story to go? And I began to daydream. I daydreamed like I did as a little girl. And I imagined myself walking gracefully, helping other people through my journey, and snowboarding again. And I didn't just see myself carving down a mountain of powder. I could actually feel it. I could feel the wind against my face and the beat of my racing heart as if it were happening in that very moment. And that is when a new chapter in my life began. 4 months later, I was back up on a snowboard. Although things didn't go quite as expected, my knees and my ankles wouldn't bend, and at one point, I traumatized all the skiers on the chairlift when I fell and my legs, still attached to my snowboard, flying down the mountain. And I was on top of the mountain still. I was so shocked. I was just as shocked as everybody else, and I was so discouraged, but I knew that if I could find the right pair of feet, that I would be able to do this again. And this is when I learned that our borders and our obstacles can only do two things. One, stop us in our tracks, or two, force us to get creative. I did a year of research, still couldn't figure out what kind of legs to use, couldn't find any resources that could help me. So I decided to make a pair myself. My leg maker and I put random parts together, and we made a pair of feet that I could snowboard in. As you can see, rusted bolts, rubber, wood, and neon pink duct tape. And yes, I can change my toenail polish. It was these legs and the best 21st birthday gift I could ever receive, a new kidney from my dad, that allowed me to follow my dreams again. I started snowboarding, then I went back to work, then I went back to school. Then in 2005, I co-founded a nonprofit organization for youth and young adults with physical disabilities so they could get involved with action sports. From there, I had the opportunity to go to South Africa, where I helped to put shoes on thousands of children's feet so they could attend school. And just this past February, I won 2 back-to-back World Cup gold medals, which made me the highest ranked adaptive female snowboarder in the world. 11 years ago, when I lost my legs, I had no idea what to expect. But if you asked me today if I would ever want to change my situation, I would have to say no. Because my legs haven't disabled me. If anything, they've enabled me. They've forced me to rely on my imagination and to believe in the possibilities. And that's why I believe that our imaginations can be used as tools for breaking through borders. Because in our minds, we can do anything, and we can be anything. It's believing in those dreams and facing our fears head on that allows us to live our lives beyond our limits. And although today is about innovation without borders, I have to say that in my life, innovation has only been possible because of my borders. I've learned that borders are where the actual ends, but also where the imagination and the story begins. So the thought that I would like to challenge you with today is that maybe instead of looking at our challenges and our limitations as something negative or bad, we can begin to look at them as blessings. Magnificent gifts that can be used to ignite our imaginations and help us go further than we ever knew we could go. It's not about breaking down borders. It's about pushing off of them and seeing what amazing places they might bring us.
오늘은 에이미 퍼디에 관한 이야기를 소개해드렸습니다. 에이미 퍼디는 양다리가 없는 한계를 극복하고 장애를 가진 스노보드 선수 중 세계 랭킹 1위가 됐습니다. 이뿐만 아니라 영화배우부터 자선단체 창업자, 동기부여 연설가, 베스트셀러 작가 등 매우 활발하게 다양한 활동들을 하고 있습니다. 만약 여러분들이 에이미 퍼디처럼 양발이 없고 신장도 없고 한쪽 귀가 들리지 않는다면 이처럼 살아갈 수가 있을까요? 에이미 퍼디가 이런 난관을 극복할 수 있었던 결정적인 이유는 바로 상상력과 긍정적인 마인드입니다. 상상, 즉 생각은 우리의 한계를 넘어설 수 있게 해주는 도구입니다. 왜냐 우리의 뇌는 상상과 현실의 기준을 구분하지 못하기 때문이에요. 만약 청양고추를 먹는 상상을 한다면 입이 메워지는 느낌이 납니다. 이처럼 우리의 뇌는 상상과 현실을 구분하지 못합니다. 결과적으로 어떤 이미지를 구체적이고 선명하게 생각할수록 뇌에서는 이상과 현실에서 나오는 괴리감을 없애기 위해 몸이 반응하고 행동합니다. 그래서 그래서 일부 운동선수들은 상상의 중요성을 알고 따로 훈련하기도 해요. 세계적인 수영선수 마이클 펠프스도 항상 생각하는 훈련을 했습니다.
So if your picture is, I'm not all that good, but I'm a pretty good swimmer, that's the way you're going to be. If your picture is, I'm an Olympic champion, I will do whatever it takes to get there, I will think about it all the time, I will visualize myself doing it, I will see myself doing it, that's where things start to move. The best person in the world of visualization, I promise, is Michael Phelps.
에이미 퍼디 또한 이러한 과정을 겪으며 성장했습니다. 비록 양다리가 없지만 스노보드를 타는 상상을 누구보다 구체적으로 생각했고, 이는 퍼디에게 맞는 스노보드 의족을 만들게 했고 완벽하게 걷기 위해 계속해서 훈련하게끔 만들었습니다. 결국에는 장애를 가진 스노보더 선수 중 세계 랭킹 1위를 달성해요. 다음으로는 긍정적인 마인드입니다. 에이미 퍼디는 긍정적인 생각으로 본인을 마주했을 때 인생의 제2막 시작됐고 움직이기 시작했어요. 실제로 양다리가 없음에도 이를 긍정적으로 생각했죠. 농구선수 마이클 조던도 이런 말을 했습니다.
I've looked at every experience that I've had, negative and positive, and taken that as a positive. You know, if I wouldn't change anything because I think it would alter some of the other things that happened.
그래서 긍정적인 사람들은 세상을 바꾸고 불가능을 이루어냅니다. 왜냐 현실적으로 어려워 보여도 성공할 거라 믿어 의심치 않고 행동하기 때문입니다. 반면에 부정적인 사람들은 상대적으로 도전의 횟수가 적습니다. 매번 안 될 이유만 찾고 시도하지 않기 때문이에요. 이처럼 부정적인 마인드보다 긍정적인 마인드를 가질수록 더 행동하고 도전합니다. 앞으로 여러분들이 어떤 어려움이나 한계에 직면하더라도 긍정적인 마인드와 생각으로 한계를 극복할 수 있는 사람이 되길 응원합니다. 감사합니다.